Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After destroying his own universe, Sonic must travel through different dimensions to save his friends and restore his world. Today we will recap the story of the first full season of Sonic Prime, from 2022. Sonic is an extremely fast hedgehog who lives in Green Hill with his best friends. Together they have saved the town thousands of times from the attacks of Dr. Eggman. This time, the villain has managed to get his grubby hands on the Paradox Prism, and the team needs to stop him from turning Green Hill into a place as disgusting as he is. While the group fights Eggman's henchmen, Sonic tries to get closer to his archenemy. The hedgehog doesn't know how that stone works, but he is sure that the doctor intends to use it to do something terrible. Seeing Sonic running at high speed, Tails and the others tell him not to touch the crystal. However, it is too late and the hedgehog's body crashes into the prism, shattering it into several pieces. Sonic then enters a portal, where he encounters different versions of his friends. When he finally makes it through, the hedgehog realizes that he has ended up in a completely new place. While walking through the streets, he ends up being run over, and when he manages to get up, he is swept away by a giant robot. Sonic is not able to remember how he arrived in that town, nor does he know why his shoes are shining. Desperate to get home, he tries to get information from some of the locals, but is completely ignored. Looking at a sign flying overhead, the hedgehog discovers that he is in the city of New York and is surprised to see Big and Froggy on the treadmill beside him. Sonic hugs his friends and says he is very happy to see them, but apparently those two don't recognize him. At this moment an alarm is triggered, because an unidentified citizen has just been seen by the security guards. Upon hearing the noise, Big runs away, leaving Sonic alone. The hedgehog uses his hyperspeed to escape from the robots, but since he is not used to those shoes yet, his escape is hampered and he has to face them. In order to increase his chances of winning that battle, Sonic hitches a ride on a train to get on a suspension bridge and jumps into the building under construction, where the top floor is being entered. In this way, the robots end up being crushed and the hedgehog manages to escape unharmed. As he looks at that city full of pollution and concrete, he soon realizes that the place is nothing but a recreation of Green Hill made by Dr. Eggman. Sonic tries to remember what happened before the destruction of the prism and remembers that Dr. Eggman set up a plan to lure him and his friends to a mountain. Tails realized that this was a trap and tried to warn the hedgehog. However, Sonic ignored him and gave in to his enemy's taunts. He used all his speed to attack Eggman's robot, and when they hit the ground, an earthquake was triggered, causing a large crack in the mountain. Sonic felt proud of his attack, as he didn't know it was so powerful. However, upon checking the robot, he realizes that the doctor was never inside. Upon seeing what has happened, Tails is upset, as Sonic has ignored his warning. In an attempt to make peace with his best friend, Sonic goes to his lab and tells him that he has found a device inside the robot. Immediately, the two-tailed fox realizes that that is a speed booster, which means that Eggman had an interest in enhancing Sonic's powers to destroy the mountain. Just then, Rouge appears and says that the villain used the hedgehog as a tool to accelerate his plan. She tells him that she has been after a rare jewel called the Prism of Paradox for many years. According to legend, this crystal possesses great power and is buried somewhere in Green Hill. Rouge's guess is that Eggman used Sonic's powers to try to find the stone. Meanwhile, the doctor is already on top of the mountain ready to finish his expedition. He uses a giant robot to move the rocks and enter the cave where the crystal is hidden. After remembering Eggman's plan, Sonic realizes that he needs to recover the Paradox Prism fragments to make Green Hill normal again. To do this, he needs the help of Tails. However, on his way to the laboratory, the hedgehog is surprised by the arrival of a giant robot, which he believes is being controlled by Eggman. Sonic wraps his opponent in a tornado of energy and manages to immobilize him. At this moment the compartment opens and he discovers that his enemy is only a baby. Confused by what he has just discovered, Sonic decides to continue his mission and goes looking for Tails. Rebel and Knuckles observe the hedgehog from afar and decide to follow him. Upon arriving at Tails' lab, Sonic enters the password and manages to get in. When he comes across the invader, the fox attacks him and claims that his name is Nine. In this world, the creature has 7 mechanical tails and also does not recognize Sonic. During the battle, Nine claims to have no friends. The young fox hates that town and believes that everyone who lives in it is cruel and heartless. During an attack, Nine ends up falling on the tracks and is about to be crushed by a train, but Sonic pulls him back, saving his life. In this way, the hedgehog gains his trust and the fox decides to help him. For some reason, Sonic's shoes have accumulated too much energy, so Nine builds regulators to keep his new friend from exploding. Now they must reach the headquarters of the Chaos Council, which is led by Dr. Eggman, so that Sonic can retrieve the Paradox Prism. On the way, however, they are captured by the baby robot, and the vigilante duo decide to follow them. While in jail, Sonic spots Amy and asks for her help. He then discovers that the girl is a cyborg named Rust Rose who works for the Chaos Council. The girl introduces the prisoner to the members of the council, which is made up of various versions of Dr. Eggman at different ages. In order to find out the extent of Sonic's powers, the villain orders Rust to submit him to a stress test. When attacked by lasers, the hedgehog uses his speed to destroy them both at the same time. He is then forced to face new challenges, which become increasingly deadly. After finishing all the steps, Rust says that the test results were inconclusive and the limit of Sonic's abilities have not yet been identified. So the blue hedgehog is put on a giant hamster wheel to test its speed, and produces an energy level so high that it destroys the machine. In that instant, he remembers what happened while investigating Dr. Eggman's plans. While running at high speed through Green Hill, Sonic came across Shadow, his greatest rival. He went there to prevent Eggman from getting his grubby hands on the Paradox Prism, since the hedgehog unwittingly helped him dig up the mountain where the crystal is hidden. In the city of New Yoke, Rebel and Knuckles watch a video of Sonic opposing Dr. Eggman. Therefore, they decide to join the hedgehog and help him fight the Chaos Council. To do so, the duo must rescue him. After getting past the security team, the rebels plan to enter the ventilation system in the direction of the laboratory. What they didn't expect is that after overloading the machine with his hyper speed, Sonic would cause an explosion that wipes out all the city's power. Minutes later, the hedgehog faints and the entire city returns to normal. At that moment, Rust captures her prisoner again and Eggman orders the extractor to be triggered to steal Sonic's energy. His idea is to add the energy of the crystal and that of the hedgehog to stop the resistance and eliminate all those who oppose his rule. However, just as he was about to be pulverized, Rebel appears and destroys the machine. Then Knuckles arrives to help her get rid of the Eggforcer's attacks. Meanwhile, 9 takes the opportunity to access the control panel and free Sonic. The hedgehog immediately uses his powers to destroy the robots, and accidentally sets off a laser that shoots all over the room. Realizing that they are at a disadvantage in that battle, the council members decide to flee, leaving the Eggforcers behind in the hope that they will succeed in destroying their opponents. However, while the trio fights the enemies, 9 manages to deactivate the robots and saves Sonic seconds before he has his head blown off by Rust. The Fox reprograms the cyborg to become the newest member of his team and help stop the council. Rust then attacks the new robots that arrive in the room and closes the door so that the enemies can no longer enter. 9 hacks the security system so that his group can escape without being tracked down, and Eggman orders Dr. Deep to use the Badniks to find them. When Knuckles realizes that they are being followed, he suggests that they flee from that place, but the Fox remains determined to find the energy crystal to end the Chaos Council's reign once and for all. Guided by Rust, the team sets off toward the energy room, but Sonic is captured by Dr. Deep and his friends go to help him. While the rest of the team fights the robots, the hedgehog has to fend off attacks from the younger version of his archenemy. In an attempt to stop them, Eggman diverts more energy from the crystals to his robots and the group ends up being surrounded. With nowhere to run, they decide to fight back, and under Sonic's leadership, the team manages to eliminate dozens of armed enemies. Upon reaching the sublevel, the group moves on to the core and 9 realizes that Sonic's shoes are connected to the energy of the Paradox Prism. Therefore, the closer he is to the crystal, the greater amount of light will be emitted. Despite losing the battle, Dr. Deep refuses to give up on capturing the hedgehog and goes after him with his henchmen. Eggman orders his employees to close the doors so that the enemies cannot reach the core, but with Rust's help they manage to get through. In order to prevent his group from being hit, Sonic uses his hyperspeed to stop the robots and distract them so that the rest of the team can escape. Now they must buy time before 9 figures out the password and opens the door. Sonic then leaves the facility and lures the robots outside, preventing his friends from being attacked. The hedgehog runs quickly across the suspension bridge, eliminating the machines along the way. He gets rid of the baby villain, known as Mr. Babble, and returns to the council base. 9 has just managed to open the door, but Rust, Rebel and Knuckles are captured by Eggman. At this point, the Fox convinces his friend to go through with the plan, for only then will he be able to save them for real. However, when Sonic spots the crystal, he discovers that it is only a small fragment of the Paradox Prism that he himself broke. Therefore, the hedgehog needs to gather every part of the crystal to bring his world back. However, when Sonic touches that stone, he gets stuck and is teleported to another dimension. This new world is more like Green Hill, however, it is surrounded by trees that have gigantic trunks and branch off to all sides. Quickly, Sonic finds other versions of his friends and goes to talk to them. The group has just returned empty-handed from a hunt. There is nothing they can eat above the trees, and the forest is very dangerous, as it is being guarded by a bloodthirsty creature. Upon introducing himself, the hedgehog is attacked and discovers that he has sharp claws that allow him to climb those giant logs. He tries to explain to the group how he got there, but they still believe that the little blue one is their enemy and is there to steal their supplies. Sonic discovers that all this hostility is the fault of a monster that guards the Boscage maze and prevents them from feeding. When she realizes that this outsider is extremely fast, Prim has the idea of using him as bait to distract the creature while her group searches for food. The hedgehog asks if they have seen any crystal fragments hidden there, and Prim, in order to get his help, says she will guide him there. However, she says she will reveal the location of the stone only after Sonic helps them collect supplies. After being driven out of the forest and forced to survive in the treetops, the group survives by eating only bark. However, that night, Sonic promises that they can eat as much fruit as they want and goes down into the jungle to stop the monster. While the quartet explores the place, the hedgehog keeps watch and sees something moving quickly among the bushes. At that instant, the group flees while Sonic goes after the creature and is surprised to discover that the animal they all fear is just a giant bird. The hedgehog then lures Birdie and causes her to crash into a tree. Upon seeing his enemy motionless, Sonic believes he has accomplished his mission. However, Prim reveals that this is just the monster's pet. Suddenly, the real threat appears and attacks the hedgehog with his hammer. Thorn Rose chases him down and claims to be there to protect the forest. With Birdie's help, she manages to capture him and throws Sonic back into the treetops. However, the hedgehog does not give up and prepares to counterattack, but remembering his sweet friend Amy, Sonic is unable to hurt her. Instead, he tries to convince the girl to settle everything peacefully and ends up getting hammered again, being thrown far away. On the way, he runs over two small birds and helps them up. In light of this, Thorn suspects that this guy may not be a threat to her precious forest and decides to give him a chance. Seeing the glow coming from Sonic's shoes, the young hedgehog claims to have seen something similar before and agrees to help him find the crystal. When they realize that the hedgehog is following the monster, the group believes they have been betrayed and their hopes come to an end. After a few minutes of walking, they find the Great Green, the oldest tree in the forest. Buried just below it is something very bright that Sonic suspects is a fragment of the prism. After digging up the earth, he uses a leaf to pick up the stone, so he can avoid being teleported again. Seeing that luminous crystal, Thorny decides to steal it and puts the stone in her hammer, which makes her even more powerful. Sonic knows he needs to get the shard back, but he is not able to defeat Thorn now that she has the new powers that have been granted by the crystal. Wherever the girl touches with her hammer, a new tree appears, making the forest even more impenetrable. With all this power in hand, Thorny intends to get rid of the marauders once and for all and imprison Sonic in a cell so that he cannot stop her. Worried for his friends, the hedgehog has the idea to use his claws to climb to the top, where there is an opening through which he can escape. Within minutes, he catches up to Thorn and plans to steal her hammer. In an attempt to stop him, the girl causes new trees to appear in the way, and Sonic must slow down to avoid an accident. During the hunt, the hedgehog ends up being thrown back on the bridge and is expelled from the jungle. The group then receives him with hostility, as they believe the hedgehog to be a traitor. At this point, Sonic explains that Thorn is going after them and asks why she wants to destroy them. Prim says she doesn't exactly know the reason for so much hatred and says that, some years ago, everyone lived in the forest in perfect harmony. They shared their supplies and gathered only what was necessary to survive, but one day, the monster decided to banish them from the jungle, forcing them to live in the canopy. In order to correct this, Sonic asks the group to follow him into the forest, where Thorny is. His idea is to get them to reconcile, but Prim and her team decide to attack her. The young hedgehog then throws them out again and closes all the entrances the group could use to return to the forest. In this way, they are doomed to die of hunger and thirst. What she didn't realize is that her enemies managed to escape the attack and are hiding in the bushes while Sonic tries to convince Thorn to take them back. Realizing that the girl is not willing to go back on her decision, the hedgehog decides to pay a visit to the Great Green. Thorny then chases him to try to drive him out of his forest, but Sonic manages to deflect the attack by opening a hole in the tops. In this way, the sunlight penetrates the jungle again. In that instant, all the life around is restored and the plants, which were withered, regain their health. Overcome with guilt, Thorny explains that she decided to expel her former friends when she realized that they were depleting all the forest's resources, without showing any respect for the life around them. After witnessing this cycle of destruction, the girl went berserk and stopped them from living in the forest, believing that this was the best solution to save her home. Upon hearing this, Prim and her group feel guilty and ask for forgiveness for what they have done. When she sees Birdie flying happily for the first time in a long time, Thorny realizes what a big mistake she has made and decides to apologize. Now that peace has returned among his friends, Sonic goes after the fragment. While running quickly through the forest, the hedgehog comes across a message from Shadow, who is trapped in another dimension. In this instant, Sonic gets distracted and ends up tripping over the roots of the trees. Since he was speeding, he can't stop before he hits the crystal. As such, his body is again teleported to New Yoke, where the Resistance is in confrontation with the Egg Forcers in an attempt to overthrow the Chaos Council. Upon seeing him, Knuckles is furious, believing that the hedgehog abandoned them while he and Rebel were fighting the robots. However, Sonic claims that he did not want to leave them alone and tells them that he disappeared after touching the crystal. With the hedgehog's help, the Resistance manages to defeat the robots, causing their enemies to retreat. Rust Rose was watching the whole battle and will report everything to the council members. She tells him that Sonic has returned to the city and Eggman intends to get him to extract his energy, since the fragment that sustained New Yoke has been stolen. Upon arriving at the hiding place, the hedgehog discovers that, after his disappearance, Nine stole the crystal and ran away. After this, Eggman managed to regain control of Rust, and the duo had to find a way to escape. In the weeks that followed, the Resistance army gained strength, and tonight Rebel intends to lead a rebellion. Just then, the Chaos Council locates their enemies and attacks them. In order to protect their hiding place, the group fights back and Sonic helps them destroy those robots. During the battle, an energy portal appears in the middle of nowhere and Nine appears piloting a spaceship. At that moment, Dr. Deep realizes that it was the fox who stole the fragment and sends his robots to capture him. The hedgehog then uses his hyperspeed to destroy the Egg Forcers and enters the aircraft. He is very happy to see his friend again and is impressed to discover that Nine is able to use the crystal to open portals. Within that universe of fragments, the fox found a completely new world without any inhabitants. He tries to convince Sonic to help him build a home on that planet, using the shard as a power source. However, the blue hedgehog refuses to abandon his friends who are fighting evil in New Yoke. So Nine helps him get back there. As soon as Sonic appears, the group unites to fight the robots. However, Dr. Eggman and his younger clones manage to capture them. When the battle seems to be lost, Nine appears again and uses his ship's laser beams to save them. As a last resort, Eggman activates his capture ship and, after attacking Nine, manages to surround him with his robots. Now that the council has managed to retrieve the crystal, Rust orders the robots to retreat and Sonic decides to go after his friend who has been captured. Before he was sent to that world, the hedgehog tried to fix the chaos he had made. After getting rid of Shadow, he ran towards the mountain to help his friends stop Eggman. When Sonic destroyed the prism, Shadow also entered the explosion and ended up in the fragment universe along with him. In New Yoke, Sonic rushes to save Nine. The hedgehog has a new vision and is teleported without even having to touch a fragment. This time, he is sent to a world surrounded by water, where the ocean has taken over everything. Sonic lands on the side of a small island and is met by a group of pirates. The trio attacks him, believing him to be a member of his captain's old crew. However, Tails notes that the hedgehog is very fast and states that this ability can be used to the crew's advantage. Thus, Sonic becomes the newest member of that squad of pirates, and his first mission is to row the dinghy that will take them back to the ship. When he arrives at the ship, he discovers that Knuckles is the captain. After experiencing various adventures across the oceans, he has become known as the Dread. To Sonic's surprise, instead of being received with hostility, the crew throws a big party to welcome him, with music and beautiful decoration. When he tries the sea dog, the hedgehog is thrilled, because hot dogs were always his favorite food when he lived in Green Hill. The group parties all night and Sonic decides to enjoy it. The next morning, he plans to find a way out of that place and go back to the New Yoke. Hours later, when he wakes up, the hedgehog walks to the edge of the ship and discovers that that place is Green Hill after it has been flooded. Sonic then realizes that he must hurry to get out of that world and asks his crew if they know where he can find the crystal shard. In that instant, Black Rose remembers seeing a luminous stone at the Devil's Lighthouse, but her captain forbids her to talk about it. Suddenly, the ship begins to be attacked, and Baton informs them that Knuckles' old crew is approaching. The captain then orders the crew to hide while his ship is invaded. Unhappy with this attitude, Sonic decides to defeat these pirates alone and turns his own body into a cannonball to attack them. During the battle, the hedgehog falls into the sea, and in that instant discovers that his shoes are able to float underwater. Encouraged by the attitude of their new crew member, the rest of the crew decide to fight their enemies and manage to stop them while the captain remains in hiding. After the invaders have left, the team decides to tell the truth about the crystal. Black Rose tells him that Knuckles was a great captain who had conquered fame, treasure, and power. However, There was one thing he had not yet conquered, the Devil's Lighthouse. After years of relentless searching, Knuckles managed to find it. The only thing he needed to do was to cross a forest of rocks that was in the way. Despite requests from his crew to alter course, the captain decided to take the shortest route and his ship was eventually destroyed. That day, Knuckles sank his ship and was even abandoned by his crew, who left him in the middle of the ocean to die. Since then, his reputation and courage were destroyed. Because of this, Knuckles swore that he would never go near that stone again. Still, Sonic tries to convince his captain to take him there. However, Knuckles claims not to know the way, because the map sank along with his ship. At this point, the hedgehog remembers that his shoes can guide him, since they emit a strong light when he approaches a fragment. So for this mission, Knuckles appoints Sonic as captain and an underwater threat approaches the ship. After stealing Nine's ship, the Chaos Council figured out how to use the stone to open portals and sent an army commanded by Rust to find other fragments of the prism. During the attack, the ship is hit several times and begins to sink. However, after calibrating the energy compass in Sonic's shoes, Rust orders his crew to continue their journey. Faced with the possibility of another shipwreck, Knuckles takes over as captain again and gives orders to his sailors to repair the ship. Sonic removes the water from the ship while Sails repairs the damage that has been done to the hull. After fixing the mast, they get back on course. Sonic uses his speed to create a cyclone and generate wind, in order to make the ship move faster. When the group arrives in the forest of rocks, Knuckles claims to have a plan to get across and orders the hedgehog to increase the speed of the craft. The captain heads towards a piece of land, which he uses as a ramp to cross the enemy ship. Just as they were about to reach the island, the sails are destroyed and the crew is left adrift in the ocean. Sonic must use his floating shoes to pull the ship along. Rust tries to eliminate him, but his team counterattacks and uses the Sea Dogs to defeat the robots. Knuckles invades the enemy ship and the hedgehog goes to help him. While the crew fights against the Egg Forcers, the captain spots some robots going to get the fragment and, with Sonic's help, manages to get to the island before them. When he realizes that his team is in danger, Sonic prepares his last attack and destroys Rust's ship along with her Egg Forcers. Then, Sails manages to immobilize the cyborg with his stun gun, and the hedgehog runs to the island to help Knuckles get rid of the robots that are after him to get the shard. While trying to save his captain, the hedgehog accidentally touches the crystal and is teleported again. This time, he encounters Shadow in the universe of fragments. His rival claims that, thanks to Sonic, Green Hill has been destroyed and attacks him violently. So what did you think of this video? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked it, please like and subscribe for more recaps. See you next time.